There are moments that change the shape of the galaxy. Not battles. Not treaties signed in cold rooms by cold hands. Moments. Small, quiet, trembling moments where someone does something so honest that it cracks the universe open. This is the story of one of those moments. His name was Liam. He was not a soldier. He was not a scientist. He was not a king or a president or anyone important by the standards of the stars. He was a schoolteacher from a small town in Oregon, a man who packed lunches for his 7-year-old daughter every morning and read her stories about space every night. And one day, he knelt before the most powerful ruler in the known galaxy, Empress Sophia of the Valorian Dominion, sovereign of 11,000 star systems, and he made her cry. Not with weapons. Not with threats. Not even with clever words designed to trick or impress. He made her cry with the truth. But before we get to that moment, you need to understand how a schoolteacher from Earth ended up standing in a throne room built from living crystal, surrounded by beings who considered his entire species to be barely more than animals. You need to understand the journey. The humiliation. The silence that sat in his chest like a stone for weeks. The way he almost gave up. And the reason he didn't. It started with the ships. They came on a Tuesday. 14 massive vessels, each one larger than any city on Earth, slipping out of folded space above the Atlantic Ocean. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. They simply appeared, hanging in the sky like dark moons, blocking the sun across 3 continents. The world panicked. Governments activated every emergency protocol. Militaries aimed everything they had at the sky and knew, with a sickening certainty, that none of it would matter. Then the message came. It arrived on every screen, every radio, every phone on the planet, translated perfectly into every language spoken on Earth. You have been discovered. Your world is now under evaluation by the Valorian Dominion. You will send one representative to the galactic seat within 40 solar rotations to speak for your species. If you fail to comply, or if your representative fails to demonstrate that your species holds value, your world will be classified as unclaimed territory and absorbed. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. The message ended. The ships remained. Within hours, the entire planet was arguing. World leaders held emergency summits. Generals demanded military responses. Scientists begged for contact. Diplomats prepared speeches dripping with careful, polished language designed to say nothing real. And through it all, the ships waited. Silent. Patient. Enormous. 40 days. That's all humanity had to choose someone, send them into the stars, and convince an alien empire that 8 billion people deserved to exist. The pressure was impossible. The stakes were everything. They argued for 19 days. Nations couldn't agree. Every country wanted to send their own representative. Presidents and prime ministers competed. Generals insisted on sending soldiers. Scientists demanded one of their own. Diplomats said only a trained speaker could survive a galactic court. Committees formed. Committees dissolved. Fights broke out at the United Nations. Meanwhile, a schoolteacher in Oregon watched it all on the news while making dinner for his daughter. "Dad," Emma said, sitting at the kitchen table with a crayon in her hand. She was 7, with brown hair that never stayed brushed and eyes that noticed everything. "Are the aliens mean?" Liam turned from the stove. "I don't know, sweetheart. Do you think they have kids?" He paused. "Maybe." Emma nodded seriously and went back to her drawing. She was always drawing, stars, planets, rockets, creatures she invented. That night, she drew 2 stick figures standing under a sky full of stars. One was clearly human. The other was taller, different, with big eyes and long arms. They were holding hands. She held it up. "When we meet them," she said, "we should be nice. Maybe nobody's ever been nice to them before. Liam looked at his daughter's drawing. Something shifted inside him. Not a grand thought. Not a plan. Just a small, stubborn feeling, the same feeling that made him stand in front of 30 children every day and believe that patience and kindness mattered. The next morning, he wrote a letter to the selection committee. Nobody took the letter seriously. Not at first. A schoolteacher? With no political experience, no scientific background, no military training? The idea was absurd. It was dismissed by 3 committees before a mid-level official named Benjamin, who worked in the U.S. State Department, actually read the full letter. Liam had written simply. He didn't argue about strategy or policy. He wrote about his students. About what he taught them. About listening. About asking questions before making judgments. He wrote about being a single father, about losing his wife Charlotte 3 years ago, about raising Emma alone. He wrote, "I'm not the smartest person you could send. I'm not the strongest or the most impressive. But I know how to walk into a room where no one respects me, because I do it every day in a classroom full of 10-year-olds, and I know how to make them listen. Not by shouting. By caring." Benjamin brought the letter to his director. His director laughed. But the days kept passing, and the committees kept fighting, and nobody could agree on anyone. On day 31, with 9 days left, the Global Council made a desperate, exhausted decision. They would send the schoolteacher. Not because they believed in him, but because they had run out of time, and at least this man had volunteered without demanding anything in return. Liam kissed Emma goodbye at his sister's house. "Bring me back a star," Emma whispered. He held her drawing in his jacket pocket and walked toward the transport shuttle. The journey took 6 days through something the Valorians called the fold, a method of travel that bent space like a piece of paper and stepped across the crease. Liam understood almost none of the technology. The ship was alive with soft light, and the walls hummed with a sound just below hearing, like a heartbeat. He was alone. No advisors. No military escort. The Valorians had been specific, 1 representative, no weapons, no devices. Just a man and his words. On the 7th morning, the ship dropped out of the fold, and Liam pressed his face against the viewing panel and forgot how to breathe. The galactic seat, the capital world of the Valorian Dominion, was a planet wrapped in rings of light. Cities floated above its surface on platforms of pale stone, connected by bridges that shimmered like frozen rivers. Ships moved between them in slow, graceful arcs, thousands of them, like silver birds. And at the planet's center, rising above everything, was the spire. A single tower of white crystal that reached beyond the clouds, glowing faintly from within. The throne room of the Empress. Liam stared at it and felt the size of what he was about to do settle on his shoulders like a physical weight. The shuttle docked. A ramp lowered. Cold, sweet-smelling air filled his lungs. 2 Valorian guards stood waiting. They were tall, 8 feet, maybe more, with skin like polished silver and eyes that held no pupils, only shifting light. They looked at Liam the way someone might look at a stray dog that had wandered into a palace. "Follow," one said. Nothing more. The halls of the spire were vast and silent. Liam's footsteps echoed on floors that seemed to be made of compressed starlight. Everything was enormous, the doorways, the ceilings, the statues lining the corridors. Valorian architecture was built for beings much taller than humans, and Liam felt like a child walking through a cathedral. Other Valorians passed him. Some stopped and stared. A few made sounds he couldn't interpret, clicks and low tones that might have been laughter. One pair looked at him and turned away as though the sight of him was offensive. A Valorian official met him at the end of the corridor. She was tall like the others, with angular features and silver-white hair that moved as though it had its own gravity. Her uniform was dark, precise, elegant. "I am Amelia," she said. Her voice was cool and flat. I am assigned to manage your presence during the evaluation period. You will follow my instructions without deviation. Thank you, Liam said. Amelia blinked, as though the words confused her. You are the human representative. Yes. She studied him for a long moment. You are smaller than I expected. I get that a lot, Liam said. Even on Earth. Amelia did not smile. Your evaluation hearing is in 12 days. Until then, you will remain in your assigned quarters. You will not wander. You will not touch anything. You will not speak to anyone unless spoken to. She paused. Do you understand? I understand, Liam said quietly. She turned and walked. He followed. The stone walls watched him pass. His quarters were a small room deep inside the spire. It had a bed too large for him, a window that looked out at an endless sky, and nothing else. No decorations. No comforts. It felt like a holding cell designed to look polite. Liam sat on the edge of the bed and pulled Emma's drawing from his pocket. He unfolded it carefully and stared at the two stick figures, one small human, one tall alien, holding hands under a crayon sky. He placed it on the ledge beside the window. Over the next 3 days, Amelia came twice each day. She brought him food, strange, tasteless cubes that were apparently nutritionally perfect, and briefed him on protocol. You will not look directly at the Empress unless she addresses you. You will not raise your voice above conversational level. You will not reference your species' history of internal warfare. It will be used against you. Liam listened to every rule and asked only one question. Will I be allowed to speak freely when it's my turn? Amelia hesitated. You will be given a window of time to address the court. What you say within that window is your responsibility. She tilted her head. I would advise you to prepare something impressive. The court does not respond to sentiment. What does the court respond to? Power, Amelia said. Strength. Proof of worth. Liam nodded slowly. He looked at Emma's drawing on the ledge. I'll keep that in mind, he said. Amelia left without another word, but at the door, she paused. Just for a second. As if she wanted to say something else. She didn't. On the 5th day, Liam was brought to a preliminary hearing. It was held in a vast hall beneath the spire, with tiered seating rising in circles around a central floor. Hundreds of Valorians sat watching. Dignitaries, officials, military officers, all silver-skinned and still, their glowing eyes fixed on the small human standing alone in the center. A voice from above announced the purpose, to review the initial data on Earth and determine whether the full evaluation should proceed. Screens appeared in the air, holographic panels showing images of Earth. Forests, oceans. Cities. And then the wars. The pollution. The poverty. The weapons. A military commander stood. He was broad, armored, and carried himself like someone who had never once doubted his own importance. I am Commander Noah, he said, his voice filling the hall. And I have reviewed the data on this species. He gestured, and more images appeared. Battlefields. Burning forests. Missiles. They fight among themselves constantly, Noah said. They poison their own world. They have achieved no meaningful space travel. They cannot even unify under a single government. He looked down at Liam with something close to disgust. And this is what they send to represent them? A caretaker of children? Laughter rippled through the hall. Liam stood still. His hands were steady. His heart was not. This species is not worth the Dominion's time, Noah continued. I recommend immediate classification as unclaimed territory. Their planet's resources can be allocated within a standard cycle. The hall murmured in agreement. Liam opened his mouth to respond. A tone sounded, sharp and final. The human has not yet been granted speech, a voice declared. Liam closed his mouth. And waited. He was escorted back to his room without being allowed to say a single word. That night, Liam sat by the window and stared out at the alien sky. 3 moons hung above the horizon, pale blue and gold, casting overlapping shadows across the floating cities. He thought about Emma. About what she was doing right now. About whether she was scared. About whether his sister was telling her that her father was coming home, even though nobody knew if that was true. He thought about Commander Noah's words. The images of Earth's worst moments, displayed for an audience that had already decided humans were worthless. And for the first time since he'd arrived, Liam felt the weight pressed down hard enough to crack something inside him. He wasn't a diplomat. He wasn't a hero. He was a 34-year-old schoolteacher who packed peanut butter sandwiches and helped kids with their reading. What was he doing here? What had he been thinking? He picked up Emma's drawing and held it in both hands. The little human figure. The tall alien figure. Holding hands. Maybe nobody's ever been nice to them before, Emma had said. Liam closed his eyes. He pressed the drawing against his chest and breathed. He didn't sleep that night. But by morning, something had settled inside him. Not confidence. Something quieter. Something deeper. He wasn't going to try to be impressive. He was going to be honest. Even if it cost him everything. On the 7th day, Amelia brought him to observe a formal court session from a high balcony. He wasn't permitted on the main floor, only to watch from above, behind a screen of translucent crystal. And that was when he saw her for the first time. Empress Sophia. She entered the throne room from a door behind the crystal throne, a massive structure carved from a single piece of pale stone that seemed to pulse with inner light. The throne was wide enough for 3 humans to sit side by side, and it rose high, surrounded by floating symbols that rotated slowly in the air. Sophia was tall, like all Valorians, but she moved differently. Where others strode with military precision, she walked with a stillness that made the air around her feel heavier. Her skin was silver, like her people, but her eyes were darker, deep violet, almost black. Her hair fell in a straight curtain of white to her waist. She wore no crown. She didn't need one. She sat on the throne, and the entire hall bowed. From his hidden balcony, Liam watched her face. It was beautiful in the way a glacier is beautiful, striking, remote, and completely unreachable. She spoke. Her voice carried without effort, calm and precise, as she addressed matters of the Dominion. Trade disputes. Territorial boundaries. Fleet deployments. Not once did she smile. Not once did her expression shift. Liam watched her for an hour. And in that hour, he noticed something no one else seemed to see. Her left hand, resting on the arm of the throne, was clenched into a fist. So tight the silver skin had gone white at the knuckles. She wasn't calm. She was holding something in. That evening, Amelia came with his food and found him sitting cross-legged on the floor, writing on a scrap of material he'd torn from the bed covering. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Making notes," Liam said. "About what I want to say at the hearing." Amelia set down the food tray. She stood for a moment, watching him, and then, for the first time, she sat down. Not on the bed. On the floor across from him. "You are going to fail," she said. Not cruelly. Just plainly. Like stating the weather. "Probably," Liam agreed. "Then why prepare?" Liam looked at her. "Because my daughter is waiting for me to come home. And even if I fail, I want to know I said what mattered." Something shifted in Amelia's expression. A small crack in the professional mask. "Tell me about her," Amelia said. Then she caught herself, as if surprised by her own words. "The child. Your daughter." Liam smiled, the first real smile he'd allowed himself since leaving Earth. Her name is Emma. She's 7. She draws pictures of everything. Aliens, spaceships, animals, her friends. She once drew a portrait of her teacher, me, and gave me 4 arms because she said I was always carrying too many things. A sound escaped Amelia. Small. Quick. Almost like a laugh. She looked away, composing herself. Valorian children do not draw, she said. They begin strategic education at age 3. That sounds lonely, Liam said softly. Amelia stood abruptly. Eat your food, she said, and left. But at the door, she paused again. Longer this time. The Empress, she said quietly, without turning around. She used to draw. When she was very young. Before her mother died. Then she was gone. Over the next 3 days, Amelia began staying longer during her visits. She never admitted she was curious. She framed every conversation as necessary preparation or cultural briefing. But the questions she asked had nothing to do with protocol. What is music? She asked once. She had read about it in Earth's data files but didn't understand. Liam tried to explain. Then he did something better, he hummed. A simple melody. A lullaby he sang to Emma every night. Amelia listened without moving. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. It serves no strategic function, she said. No, Liam agreed. It just makes you feel less alone. On the 9th day, Amelia told him about Empress Sophia. Her mother was Empress Olivia, Amelia said. She ruled for 40 years. She was different. She believed the Dominion should protect weaker species, not absorb them. She built schools on conquered worlds. She listened to petitions from species most Valorians considered beneath notice. What happened to her? Amelia's voice dropped. She was poisoned. By members of her own court who believed her compassion was weakness. Sophia was 11 years old. Liam said nothing. He just listened. After that, the court raised Sophia. Commander Noah and the military council shaped her into what they needed, a ruler who would never be called weak. Never show softness. Never hesitate. Amelia paused. She has not spoken her mother's name publicly in 14 years. That's not strength, Liam said quietly. That's a prison. Amelia looked at him. Her glowing eyes held something complicated. Something almost like agreement. Be careful with that kind of thinking, she said. It will get you destroyed here. On the 10th day, Liam was informed that before his final hearing, he would be required to complete a trial of worth, a Valorian tradition for any species seeking recognition. The trial had 3 components: strength, intellect, and endurance. Commander Noah delivered the news personally, stepping into Liam's quarters with a cold satisfaction on his face. Every species that has come before the Dominion has faced this trial, Noah said. Most fail. Your kind, I expect, will set a new standard for failure. The trial took place in an arena beneath the spire. Thousands watched from elevated platforms. Liam stood on the floor in his Earth clothes, a plain jacket, worn shoes, Emma's drawing folded in his pocket. The strength test came first. He was asked to lift a gravitational weight calibrated to Valorian standards. Liam gripped the handles and pulled. It didn't move. Not even slightly. His arms shook. His face went red. The weight sat on the floor like a mountain. The crowd made that sound again, the clicking, the low tones. Amusement. Contempt. The intellect test was a strategic simulation projected in the air. Liam was given a fleet of ships and told to defend a star system. He had no training, no understanding of the technology. He made decisions based on instinct. His fleet was destroyed in 4 minutes. More laughter. The endurance test was a corridor filled with shifting gravity fields. He was supposed to walk through it. He made it 11 steps before the gravity slammed him to the floor so hard the breath left his body. He lay there, face down on cold crystal, and heard the arena buzzing with disdain. He had failed every single test. But then something happened that wasn't part of the trial. As Liam pulled himself off the floor, bleeding from a cut on his forehead, he saw another figure in the gravity corridor. A young Valorian, barely more than a child, maybe a servant or an assistant, had stumbled onto the test floor by accident. The shifting gravity caught the young alien off guard and slammed him sideways into a wall. The young Valorian cried out. A high, sharp sound of pain. No one moved. The audience watched. The officials looked at each other. The trial had not been designed for this. Protocol said nothing about intervention. Commander Noah watched from his platform with flat, disinterested eyes. Liam didn't think. He didn't calculate. He just moved. He crawled back into the gravity corridor, fighting against forces that pressed him flat, that twisted his joints and crushed the air from his lungs. He crawled on his hands and knees, inch by inch, until he reached the young Valorian. The child, because that's what he was, a child, was trembling, pinned against the wall by a gravity field twice his body weight. Liam wrapped his arms around the young alien and shielded him. He used his own body to block the worst of the gravitational shifts. He held on until the officials finally shut down the corridor. When the gravity released, Liam collapsed. The young Valorian scrambled to his feet, unharmed, and stared down at the bleeding human with wide, shocked eyes. The arena was completely silent. No one was laughing now. Liam was carried back to his quarters by 2 guards who handled him more gently than before. Amelia was waiting. She treated the cut on his forehead with a small medical device that sealed the skin with warm light. That was not part of the trial, she said. I know. You gained nothing from it. The scores stand. You failed all 3 tests. I know that too. Amelia finished treating the wound. She didn't step back. She stayed close, studying his face as though trying to solve a problem she hadn't been trained for. Why did you do it? She asked. Because he was scared, Liam said. And he was a kid. Amelia opened her mouth. Closed it. Then she left. What Liam didn't know was that every moment of the trial had been recorded and automatically sent to the Empress's private archive for review. It was standard procedure. Sophia reviewed all evaluation footage personally. That night, alone in her private chamber at the top of the spire, Empress Sophia watched the recording. She watched the human fail every test. She watched the crowd laugh. She watched Commander Noah's satisfied expression. And then she watched a small, broken human crawl back into a gravity field that was crushing him, wrap his arms around a Valorian child he had never met, and hold on. Sophia paused the recording. She stared at the frozen image of Liam's face, eyes squeezed shut, teeth clenched, blood on his forehead, arms locked around the frightened child. She sat there for a very long time. Then she replayed it. From the beginning. 2 days before the final hearing, Amelia came to Liam's quarters in the evening. She was carrying something, a thin, translucent tablet that displayed text in Valorian script. The court has reviewed your trial results, she said. Commander Noah has formally recommended that Earth be classified as unclaimed territory. He has the support of the majority of the military council. Liam nodded slowly. He had expected this. However, Amelia continued, the Empress has not yet ruled. The final hearing will proceed. You will have your chance to speak. How long will I have? The traditional allowance for a species representative is 100 heartbeats. Liam almost laughed. 100 heartbeats. That's about 2 minutes. 100 Valorian heartbeats. Approximately 90 seconds. 90 seconds to save a world. Liam sat quietly for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out Emma's drawing. It was creased now, softened at the folds from being held so many times. He unfolded it and held it out to Amelia. "This is what Emma drew the night the ships came," he said. "A human and an alien, holding hands." Amelia took the drawing carefully, as though it might dissolve. She studied it. The simple crayon lines. The lopsided stars. The two figures. "She told me to make friends up there," Liam said. "She's 7 years old, and she wasn't afraid. She just wanted us to be kind." Amelia looked at the drawing for a long time. Her silver fingers traced the edge of the paper. "May I keep this for one night?" she asked quietly. Liam hesitated. That drawing was everything he had from home. But he looked at Amelia's face, at the crack. That night, Amelia did something she had never done in her years of service. She requested a private audience with the Empress. Sophia received her in a chamber behind the throne room, a quieter space, still grand but less formal. The Empress stood by a tall window, looking out at the moonlit cities. "What is it, Amelia?" Amelia held out the drawing. "The human asked me to hold this. I thought you should see it." Sophia turned. She looked at the small piece of paper in Amelia's hand. She didn't take it. "A child's drawing," she said flatly. "His daughter's. She is 7 years old. She drew this the night our ships appeared over their world." Amelia paused. "She drew a human and a Valorian holding hands." Sophia's violet eyes moved across the drawing. The crayon stars. The stick figures. One small, one tall. Something in her face tightened. Just barely. A flicker. "The child does not understand what she drew," Sophia said. "Perhaps," Amelia said. "Or perhaps she understands something we've forgotten." Sophia's eyes snapped to Amelia. Hard. Warning. But Amelia didn't look away. "Your mother would have looked at this drawing, Empress. And she would have smiled." The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia's jaw clenched. Her hands, both of them, curled into fists at her sides. "Leave," she whispered. Amelia placed the drawing on a table near the window and left without another word. Sophia stood alone in the chamber. She did not touch the drawing. But she didn't remove it either. And long after the moons had crossed the sky, the light in her chamber was still on. The morning of the final hearing arrived. Liam was brought to the great throne room of the spire. It was the largest enclosed space he had ever seen, a cathedral of crystal and light, with pillars that stretched upward until they disappeared into brightness. Thousands of Valorians filled the tiered seats. Military officers. Diplomats. Scholars. Citizens who had come to witness the judgment of another primitive world. The crystal throne stood at the far end, elevated on a platform of white stone. Floating symbols rotated around it slowly, the seal of the Dominion, ancient and absolute. Commander Noah stood to the right of the throne, armored and straight-backed, his case already prepared. Liam was escorted to the center of the floor. He stood alone. No podium. No microphone. No allies. Just a man in a worn jacket with a drawing in his pocket, surrounded by giants. A tone sounded, deep and resonant, and the hall fell silent. Empress Sophia entered. She walked to the throne with that same heavy stillness. She wore a formal robe of deep black, threaded with silver that caught the light like captured stars. Her face was unreadable. A mask carved from stone. She sat. The court bowed. Her violet eyes found Liam across the vast hall. For 1 second, just one, their gazes locked. Then she looked away. "Begin," she said. Commander Noah stepped forward. He spoke for 15 minutes. His voice was commanding, his arguments precise. He presented Earth's history of warfare, its environmental destruction, its technological limitations. He showed recordings of human conflicts, fires, explosions, suffering, all projected in holographic detail above the court. This species has had thousands of years to evolve, Noah said. And in that time, they have consistently chosen violence, division, and self-destruction. They possess no unique technology, no strategic value, no resources we cannot obtain elsewhere. He turned and looked directly at Liam. They sent a teacher of children to speak for their world. This alone tells you everything you need to know about their judgment. He turned back to the throne. I recommend Earth be classified as unclaimed territory, its population relocated or integrated at the Dominion's discretion. This is mercy. They would eventually destroy themselves regardless. The court murmured approval. Heads nodded. The judgment felt inevitable. Sophia sat motionless on the throne. Her face revealed nothing. The human representative may now speak, a voice announced. A tone marked the beginning of his 90 seconds. Every eye in the hall turned to Liam. He stood there, small and alone on that vast floor, and for a moment he said nothing. The silence stretched. Someone in the upper tiers made a clicking sound, impatience, maybe contempt. Then Liam did something no one expected. He didn't speak. He knelt. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered himself to one knee on the crystal floor, bowed his head, and placed both hands flat on the ground in front of him. The hall went utterly still. No species representative had ever knelt before the galactic throne voluntarily. In Valorian culture, kneeling was the deepest form of acknowledgement, not submission, but recognition. It said, I see your power, and I do not challenge it. I come with nothing but myself. Commander Noah stiffened. This wasn't in any protocol. This wasn't how primitive species behaved, they usually begged, or threatened, or tried to bargain. This human simply knelt. And then, with his head still bowed, Liam spoke. His voice was quiet, but in that silent hall, every word carried. I'm not going to argue with anything the commander said. He's right. We fight. We hurt each other. We've damaged our own world in ways that shame me to stand here, to kneel here, and admit. He paused. Breathed. I didn't come here to tell you that humans are powerful. We're not. I didn't come here to tell you that we're advanced or that we deserve your respect based on what we've built. By your standards, we've built almost nothing. His voice trembled slightly, but he held it steady. I came here because my daughter, she's 7 years old, and her name is Emma, she looked up at your ships in the sky, and she wasn't afraid. She picked up a crayon and drew a picture. She drew a human and one of you, standing together, holding hands. And she said to me, maybe nobody's ever been nice to them before. Liam raised his head. His eyes glistened but did not spill over. I'm kneeling because she asked me to be brave. And where I come from, the bravest thing you can do is not fight. It's to put yourself at someone's mercy and trust that they have some. The 90 seconds were almost gone. Liam could feel it, the invisible clock winding down, his one chance thinning like the last light before dark. He reached into his pocket and pulled out Emma's drawing. He held it up, a small, creased piece of paper, trembling slightly in his hands, so the court could see it. A child's crayon lines. 2 stick figures. Stars. This is all I brought, he said. I don't have weapons. I don't have technology. I don't have a fleet or an army or a single reason you should listen to me. His voice cracked, but he kept going. I have a drawing by a little girl who believes that kindness exists between the stars. That's it. That's everything I have. He lowered the drawing to his chest. You can take our planet. You can relocate us, absorb us, do whatever your laws say you're supposed to do. But you need to know what you'd be erasing. Not our wars. Not our failures. You'd be erasing the part of us that draws pictures of strangers and wants to hold their hand. He looked up, directly at Empress Sophia, breaking every protocol Amelia had taught him. I know what it's like to lose someone you love, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I know what it's like to build walls so the grief can't get in. But the walls don't keep out the grief. They just keep out everything else. The tone sounded. His time was over. Liam bowed his head again. His hands pressed flat against the cold crystal floor. The hall was silent. Absolutely, completely silent. And on the throne, something was happening that no one in that room had ever seen before. Empress Sophia's hands were shaking. It started small, a tremor in her fingers, barely visible. Then it moved to her wrists. Her jaw tightened. Her breath caught in her chest in a way she hadn't felt since she was 11 years old, standing in a room that smelled like medicine, holding her mother's hand as the light left her eyes. She stared at the human kneeling before her. This small, fragile creature who had failed every test, who had no power, no leverage, no weapon of any kind. Who had crawled through a gravity field to save a child he didn't know. Who had crossed the stars carrying nothing but a piece of paper colored with crayon. And she heard her mother's voice. Not a memory she chose to recall, it came unbidden, breaking through 14 years of walls. Strength without kindness is just cruelty with a crown, Sophia. Her mother had said that. On the last day. With her final breath. Sophia stood. The court shifted. Commander Noah started to speak. Empress, the recommendation is clear. Silence, Sophia said. The word wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She stepped down from the throne. 1 step. 2. 3. Down the wide stairs of white stone, her black robe trailing behind her. The floating symbols parted around her like startled birds. She walked across that vast floor toward the kneeling human. Every soul in the hall watched. No one breathed. She stopped in front of Liam. He could see the hem of her robe. The edge of her shadow falling over him. Look at me, she said. He raised his head. She was crying. Not the way humans cry, not with red faces and shaking sobs. Valorians cried differently. Their tears were silver, like liquid light, and they fell slowly, tracing lines down her cheeks like molten stars. Her violet eyes, normally so controlled, so guarded, were wide open and overflowing. The court gasped. A sound like wind through an empty hall. Several officials rose to their feet. Commander Noah took a step forward, his face twisted with shock. The Empress of the Valorian Dominion, the ruler of 11,000 star systems, the most powerful being in the known galaxy, was weeping in front of a human. Sophia reached down. Her silver hand extended toward Liam. Not to strike. Not to command. She was reaching for the drawing. Liam understood. He lifted Emma's drawing, that small, creased, precious piece of paper, and placed it gently in her hand. Sophia held it. She looked at the 2 stick figures. The crayon stars. The human and the Valorian, holding hands under a sky full of possibility. My mother, she said, and her voice broke on the word. She stopped. Swallowed. Tried again. My mother used to tell me that the measure of power is not what you can destroy. It is what you choose to protect. She looked down at Liam, still kneeling, still looking up at her. I forgot, she whispered. I forgot for so long. A tear, a single drop of silver light, fell from her cheek and landed on the drawing. It didn't smudge the crayon. It sat there, glowing, like a tiny star had come to rest between the 2 figures holding hands. Sophia turned to face her court. She held the drawing against her chest with one hand and stood straight. The tears still fell, but her voice was clear. Stronger than it had ever been, not because she was hiding what she felt, but because she wasn't hiding it anymore. Earth will not be absorbed, she declared. Earth will not be classified as unclaimed territory. Commander Noah stepped forward. Empress, the trial results are clear. The human failed every. The human crawled through a field that was crushing him to save a child he had never met, Sophia said, turning her gaze on Noah with a force that stopped him mid-step. He crossed the stars with no weapons, no power, no protection, only a promise to his daughter. He knelt before this throne not because he was forced to, but because he chose to. Her voice rose. Tell me, Commander, when is the last time any of us chose to be vulnerable? When is the last time any of us risked everything not for power, but for kindness? Noah opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Sophia addressed the full court. My mother, Empress Olivia, was called weak because she believed in compassion. She was killed for it. And I allowed her killers to reshape me in their image. I allowed fear to sit on this throne in place of wisdom. She paused. That ends today. She raised her hand. The floating symbols around the throne rearranged themselves, forming new patterns, the ancient Valorian script for protection, alliance, partnership. Earth is hereby declared a protected world of the Valorian dominion. Its people will be offered guidance, not control. Partnership, not subjugation. And any member of this court who objects may formally challenge me. She looked at Noah. Would you like to challenge me, Commander? The hall held its breath. Noah stepped back. He lowered his head. He said nothing. 3 days later, Liam stood in the docking bay of the Spire, waiting for the ship that would take him home. Amelia was there. She stood beside him, hands clasped behind her back, her face carrying an expression she probably would have denied, something warm, something close to fondness. You changed things, she said. You know that. Emma changed things, Liam said. I just carried her drawing. Amelia made that sound again, the small, quick almost laugh. You are a strange species. Yeah, Liam said. We get that a lot. A silence passed between them. Comfortable. The kind of silence that only exists between people who have come to understand each other. Take care of her, Amelia said. You're Emma. I will. Footsteps echoed behind them. Liam turned. Empress Sophia walked toward them across the bay. She was alone, no guards, no officials. Just her, in a simple silver robe, her white hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger this way. Less like an empress. More like someone who had finally set down something impossibly heavy. She stopped in front of Liam and held out Emma's drawing. I had a copy made, she said. For myself. I hope that is acceptable. Liam took the drawing gently. More than acceptable. Sophia hesitated. Then she reached up and unclasped a small pendant from her neck, a tiny crystal shaped like a star, glowing faintly with inner light. She placed it in Liam's palm and closed his fingers around it. Give this to your daughter, she said. Tell her she was right. Tell her there is kindness between the stars. And tell her, Sophia's voice wavered, just slightly. Tell her the Empress is trying to remember how to draw. Liam looked at the crystal star in his hand. He looked at the Empress. And he smiled. I'll tell her, he said. And she'll probably send you a whole stack of drawings by next week. For the first time in 14 years, Empress Sophia smiled. Not a political smile. Not a careful, measured expression designed for court. A real smile. Small and uncertain and completely, beautifully genuine. Liam boarded the ship. He pressed his hand against the viewing panel as the vessel lifted and turned toward the stars. Below him, the galactic seat shrank into light. The spire glowed white against the dark. Somewhere inside it, an empress pinned a copy of a child's crayon drawing beside an old portrait of her mother. Two stick figures under a sky full of stars. Holding hands. 6 days later, a transport ship descended through the clouds above Oregon. Liam walked down the ramp into morning sunlight. Emma was already running across the field toward him, her hair flying, her arms wide open. He caught her. He lifted her up. He held her so tight that the whole sky could have fallen and it wouldn't have mattered. "Did you bring me a star?" she whispered. He opened his hand. The crystal pendant glowed in the sunlight, warm and alive, throwing tiny rainbows across Emma's face. She gasped. Then she looked up at her father with those wide, knowing eyes. "Did you make a friend?" Liam looked at the sky. Somewhere beyond the blue, beyond the clouds, beyond everything he could see, a young empress was sitting on a crystal throne, learning to feel again. Learning that strength and softness could live in the same heart. Learning it from a piece of paper and a man who knelt. "Yeah," he said, his voice thick with something that felt like the whole universe pressing gently against his chest. "I made a friend." Emma smiled and held the star against her heart. Above them, the sky was wide and blue and full of possibility. And somewhere among the stars, for the first time in a very long time, the galaxy felt a little less cold.